Here is the last video in this lesson on radians. So sometimes we're asked to convert between radians and degrees or degrees and radians. And sometimes if you could look at a question like A here, 120 degrees, it's fairly easy to think through. You know 120 degrees is just 260 degrees, and you know 60 degrees is pi over 3. So this has to be 2 pi over 3. So we're done. It's 2 pi over 3. Now, maybe you're not quite there, it's not quite as comfortable for you. There's another strategy we can use, and we'll have to use it sometime. We know that pi is the same as 180 degrees. So if I have an angle, pi over 180, in radians, I don't know what it is, but it's 120. This ratio needs to be the same. And so then I can just cross multiply here and divide. So multiply pi times 120 equals 180 times x. A lot of times in this case, we'll leave it in terms of pi. So these cancel. I'm left with x equals 120 over 180. You can reduce that in your calculator if you need to, or 12 over 8. You can see I can divide them both by 6. I get 2 pi over 3. So either way, your final answer is 2 pi over 3. Part B here, you're going to have to use this is called a proportion here. You're going to have to use a proportion to solve it. So you're going to set it up pi over 180 equals x over negative 297.25. Now, one thing I should mention is it's important to line up radians with radians and degrees with degrees. Doesn't matter which way you go as long as same angles are here, same angles here. Radians are crossed and degrees are crossed. So let's multiply negative 297.25 pi equals 180x. Divide both sides by 180. These are going to cancel. We'll end up with x equaling negative 5.2 radians. And if we think about it, 2 pi or 6.28 would be all the way around. This makes sense. It's a little bit less than 360 degrees, so this should be a little bit less than 6.28 radians. And the last section here, convert from radians to degrees. If it's one we're comfortable with, quarters, we know zeros here, pi is here. Eventually you'll just jump and be like, oh, I know it's right there. Right now you might have to divide it into quarters and see I've got pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. This is right here. If I know that this is 45 degrees, I know this is 90. This has to 90 plus 45, which is 135 degrees. And you're set. Now, you can also use a proportion here as well. So to use a proportion, we're going to use that same fact. We know that pi is the same as 180 degrees. 3 pi over 4 over x. We don't know what x is. We're going to cross multiply here. Pi times x equals 180 times 3 pi over 4. Divide both sides by pi. The x then, if we type it in the calculator, is going to be 135 degrees. Surprise, surprise. Over here, part B, we're going to have to use our proportion. Pi over 180 equals 8.5 over x. We can then cross multiply pi x equals 180 times 8.5. That's going to give us 1,530. When I multiply that out and then divide that by pi, get our final answer of 487.0 degrees. And again, that makes sense. 6.28 radians would be 360. We're a little bit more than 360 here. So here we go. Quick review. You can always think through, I shouldn't say always. Sometimes you can think through what this looks like on the just fractions and dividing it up to get your answer. Sometimes you can use the proportion that pi is 180, set that up and cross multiply.